Welcome back to Let's Talk Tax, the podcast for growth-minded CPAs and consulting professionals navigating today's evolving tax and business landscape. I'm your host, TJ Sponsel. And today we're taking a little different angle as we're going to be talking about marketing. I'm joined by my colleague, Kelsey Brewer, our Chief Marketing Officer, to talk about how marketing has evolved in the CPA industry in recent years. Kelsey, welcome.
Thanks, TJ. It's so fun to be on this side.
Well, this is an interesting platform for you and I. All these years we've been talking. Kelsey actually works remotely out of Denver, Colorado with her family, and I'm here based in Indianapolis. So we're used to our more informal internal dialogue. So I'm looking forward to what we're going to talk about today. So Kelsey, why don't you give a brief background of yourself for all of our listeners?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm our Chief Marketing Officer. I've been in-house with the firm for about 5 years, but I started with TJ and Dave and the crew in 2017 as we were really building a brand. And so a couple of years ago, I had the opportunity to come in-house, and it's been quite the ride since.
It's been, Kelsey's made a tremendous impact. Back in 2016, we sat down and really developed what was then our first strategic plan. We had a 4-year strategic plan. We got to know Kelsey in the spring of 2017, and she had an unbelievable impact on our firm back then and continues to do so today. For those of you who are aware of McGuire Sponsel, we've always been a very, I would say, proactive about our marketing, our approach to marketing, our marketing spend, the tools that we use. And so when Kelsey and I were talking about this episode today, what I thought is just kind of share some of the observations that Kelsey has, maybe looking at McGuire Sponsel almost like as a case study in terms of the good, the bad, and the ugly, and maybe some other observations. Kelsey's very involved in AIM, which is very familiar with the CPA ranks, and maybe she could also discuss some of the trends that she's seeing there. So Kelsey, I think the first question to ask is that you go back 10 years ago, obviously over the past 10 years, marketing has evolved greatly. I think back when you'd go to a conference and it would be just a simple tablecloth, maybe a quick screen. You get an email list and you email thank you notes to everybody. What have you seen in your time with working with CPA firms across the country? What has been some of the couple of biggest areas of evolution within the marketing landscape over the past, let's call it 5 to 7 years?
I feel like marketing iterates every 18 months or so as technology and the digital age kind of paces us. But marketing truly today is really no longer an afterthought. I think for a lot of people, they feel like they need a marketing department, right? They need a marketing team to do all the things. But for so many people, it really isn't involved in the strategy of firms. And I think that's been a huge evolution over the last couple of years as the M&A landscape continues to heat up. Private equity has been a huge part of it. But as firms really define themselves and start to differentiate who they are, not only internally as a brand, but also with their referrals and clients, it has to be kind of part of your internal strategy, and it's all about driving growth, right? If we're not growing, we're not going to be here in a couple of years. And so as we think about the evolution of marketing, that's really been a big part of it, just the intentionality about what our messaging is, what we look like, where we are, what our channels are, what technology we're using, and how that's really complementing the technical aspect of your firm in whatever way that is.
I always kind of looked at marketing as more of an art form. Years ago, when we started investing in marketing, and it was more of an art form. And obviously, we're in a very technical business. It's tax law, it's GAAP, it's very well defined, black and white. In marketing, there's a lot of gray matter. But I sense, Kelsey, in what your impact on the firm, and I think things that you talk about with other marketing professionals across the country is there's actually some science to it. There's actually some proven processes. And how do firms that maybe haven't invested in marketing, or they have been investing in marketing, but almost what I would call blindly, just throwing at it because it's a checkbox and something you should do. What are some of the tools that you see that are more and more scientific or technical as opposed to just preference items, maybe what they were a few years ago?
I think as we think about investment for marketing, it's all about understanding kind of where you want to start. I mean, of course, there's an industry benchmark, right? For if firms have been doing it and they really want to level up, that's certainly something. But I think one of the things that people really miss is understanding what their priorities are for their firm, because there's so many things, right? As firms are growing, they're offering more and more to their clients, which is great, right? But how marketing teams really focus on what they're doing can sometimes get lost in the shuffle. And so I think that's one thing that as we think about the areas in which, they grow, understanding the balance of capacity, but also really what you want to resonate with clients and the message that you want to deliver. And it's not going to happen overnight, but starting and being really consistent in that can make a big difference.
just to kind of give everybody context, we have a 4-person marketing team. So obviously Kelsey has a team of 3 under her, and
Yep.
we do obviously digital marketing, and we do a ton of distribution and a lot of
Yep.
design work. What would you say that to that firm, that local firm? Let's say it's 100, less than 100 people in their firm, and they have that one marketing person, and you have a managing partner or a tax director, even maybe the marketing person who's listening today. What counsel would you give that individual that feels like they are carrying the entire load of the
Yep.
entire marketing function within that firm?
I would start with a baseline to just understand what data your firm has available, because the data can be super helpful, even for single marketers. If you're using still Excel spreadsheets, there's nothing wrong with that if that's what your capacity is, right? And I think understanding your data and then starting small, but being super consistent about what you're doing. So pick an audience, pick a practice line, pick an industry that you really want to specialize in, and then lean into your people that you have in house, understand what their specialty is, get them talking, get them writing on certain things, and just get the ball rolling. I think that's one thing that firms struggle with, is they feel like they have to be everything to every practice line and to all of their clients, and there's just not enough hours in the day, so that's where I would start.
Yeah, because I think so many times you hear firms, maybe they have a bucket of obviously money, the amount of budget they spend on marketing, but they
Yeah.
may rush to do a website or a
Right.
flashy rebrand, when that's not bad, but is that the right priority?
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we see often in the 500 plus firms that we serve across the country, as well as there might be this feeling, because we are all our accountants, is that we want to say, okay, we have our audit practice, we have our tax practice, we have our CAS practice, we have
Yeah.
our advisory practice, and we have to spend our marketing evenly over those practice
Yeah.
lines.
Yeah.
And so I think looking at how our marketing budget has grown,
Mm-hmm.
over the years to where it's
Yeah.
probably, 4 or 5x what it was just back in 2017.
Right.
Can you kind of peel back, and how do you advise us as shareholders, like the executive committee of McGuire Sponsel? How do you advise us on prioritizing marketing and our marketing spend?
When I first came in house, or when we started early on, we had a certain set of dollars, and we said, okay, what do we have available to us? And then are we building kind of that agency in house that's moving us forward? Or are we going to look kind of objectively about where the business has gone? And that's really what we've done over the last couple of years, is to say, where are our strongest practice lines, right? Where we have a ton of thought leadership, a ton of credibility, and what are newer practice lines that we really need to bolster, in knowing that the CPA industry wants more of that from McGuire Sponsel, but we really need to deliver. And, the good and the bad of that is that we've set an expectation of what we deliver and what that experience is like. So as we think about our own spend, we're mindful of investment in technology, right? As a baseline, as our team has grown, the technology stack that we use has grown alongside that. So that kind of builds our base. And then we really start to compartmentalize down from a practice line and a growth perspective in terms of how our BD team is going to market. So what can marketing do to support them? But then also, how can we shine a light on all the people in-house and do that in a way that makes sense, aligned with growth goals? So you kind of have to compartmentalize it a little bit. And I think getting your partner team to really understand and build alignment on those priorities is also really critical to marketing. If you're a single marketer, or if you're a team of 40, it doesn't really matter if your partner team is not aligned strategically on where you're going and how marketing is making an influence, right? So one of the things that I've talked a lot about with firms over the last, 6 months or so, is how marketing teams are aligned with their BD team, right? Or their sales function. Are those responsibilities sitting still with partners, right? And is that their goal? Or have firms really built out their own BD teams, and are they going to market in a way that complements the partners and staff within the firm? And that's something that's also evolved at McGuire Sponsel. If you look just at the investment and how I guide our team, it's been really cool to see our sales team and marketing teams come together over the last couple of years, because we found some crazy synergy that we didn't know existed 5 years ago.
You brought up a good point there, Kelsey, and the fact that talking about the technology stack. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
think some people hear the technology stack and they think of, LinkedIn, Facebook, using, that's not what you're talking about. Can you kind of touch on at
Yeah.
a high level what our technology stack looks like, and maybe
Yeah.
what some of the purpose of it is?
When I came in house, one of the things that we had done in 2019 was upgrade McGuire Sponsel systems from Dynamics at that time to Salesforce, right? And for a lot of people, that seems just astronomical and kind of out of touch. And for us, we knew where we were going. And that was the biggest part. And so I always remind firms to don't think about technology for where you are today, but where you want your team to be in 18 months, in 3 years, in 5 years, because you have to get started, to my point earlier. But our tech stack really starts with CRM. Right. And so over the last 9 months, we have migrated, as I've talked to a lot of firms about, migrated from a marketing automation platform with Pardot over to HubSpot. So kudos to my team. It's been a big lift. But that's a really intentional point on our side and understanding where our data lived, right? We knew that we had a data source of truth in Salesforce that was super helpful to our firm wide. We have financial systems integrated with Salesforce, and other things that strengthen the operations of our firm. But we knew that we had a greater opportunity from a marketing automation perspective, and how marketing automation really serves as the hub for a lot of other things. So as we think about social media, as we think about paid media, as we think about functionality for content, as we think about other things related to Let's Talk Tax, and the tech stack just, related to LTT is significant compared to where it was 2 years ago. So we like to layer on in a complementary way that really accelerates the benefit of the people that I have on my team, right? Because again, we are a small but mighty team of 4, but with the addition of our tech stack, we're able to do way more than we would without it. So that's kind of how we construct the MarTech stack, and it evolves, right? I mean, my team was on demos for 2 separate things yesterday that are really cool. And my question every time on every platform is, who's going to manage it and how does it integrate with what we have now? So things can be shiny and really fun and sound great, but if you don't have the capacity to manage it internally, it's not going to be a value back to your firm.
How do we balance here at McGuire Sponsel, and what do you see out there in the industry? Obviously, talking to some of your AIM fellow members, is that we're a technical industry. We kind of lean heavily on the technical information, whether it's tax law changes or court case rulings or other types of technical guidance that come out across different practice lines.
Yeah.
How do you balance that in terms of going out and making that relatable to the common person? I mean, I can send a technical article to one of our alliance firms; they're going to digest it. But sending it to a taxpayer, it's got to be handled a little differently. How does in terms of to be an effective marketer in the CPA world? Okay, how do you balance taking that very technical message and making it relatable and putting application with it so your audience, your desired audience, understands it and uses it as a catalyst to reach out or an opportunity for you to build credibility or nurture a relationship?
I think this is where you get back to marketing as more of a science than an art, right? And I think the first part starts with really understanding who your clients are. McGuire Sponsel has a really interesting, unique go-to-market strategy because we work directly with CPA firms, right? And we take great pride in the respect that we have for the CPA client relationship. And as an extension of that, as you mentioned, we are always mindful that the messaging that we're putting out, whether it's legislative update or something that they should be thinking about from a planning opportunity, really resonates with the CPA, but it translates into how the CPA can really build a deeper advisory relationship with their clients. And so as we think about our go-to-market, we're always mindful of the yin and the yang on technical and relational, because you can read all kinds of articles, just Google the IRS and anything. Yesterday we were doing a search on form 6765, and the first thing that pops up is the IRS link, right? And it's like, oh, great. But as you're reading that, does anyone actually understand what it means, right? And obviously many, many of our CPAs do. But you think about manufacturing clients that are reading that and they're like, oh my goodness, what does this really mean for me personally as a business owner, but also for my business? And so as we think about content, to your point, we're mindful of leading with technical. We understand that that's what our CPAs really value about us, but it's the application, it's the color commentary, it's the consulting. What does it really mean? Kind of breaking it down to be not so complex, that I think has really differentiated us over the last couple of years, because it's approachable. And that's one thing in really highly technical arenas like tax and everything that we do that can sometimes just get lost in the shuffle.
I was in a meeting with a CPA firm last week in the Midwest, 70-ish person CPA firm, one marketing professional. And the managing partner brought this individual in to kind of talk shop with me for a little bit. And they're basically, you can tell, and this individual was pretty young, you could tell,
Yeah.
in her career. And based on her comments, you could tell that she was heavily leaning on social media as a
Okay.
market strategy.
Yep.
Where does your all of your expertise and where you've helped take McGuire Sponsel to, and all the
Yeah.
successful people you surround yourself with, what place does social media and digital marketing have in a dynamic CPA firm or tax firm like ours
Yep.
overall marketing plan?
I always think about social as just the amplification of all the things that you're doing, right? In a commoditized world that we're living in at the moment and how crazy busy people are, I always remind our teams that social could be 1% of someone's week. It could be more, right? But as we think about it, we often talk, to your point, about many teams who are, posting a blog once a month and then they're doing 10 social posts. And I often say to them, how many people are following you on whatever channel it is, right? And they kind of give me the blank stare like, oh gosh, I don't know. I'd have to look it up. And so it's all about being intentional, but knowing what's effective and really where you're going to land. And some people would go back and say, well, social is more valuable to my firm than email is, right? If you just take those two, they're both ways to amplify your message and send it to your clients and feel like you're connecting. But if you don't understand who's actually following you, you have to remember, right, that it's just a slice of their overall day and that it is incredibly helpful. And one of the things too that social can be a nice just checkpoint is to step back and understand what your strategy is, right? So if you're leveraging social media as an owned channel, something that you're pumping out all kinds of content on your own, and you're really using it for lead gen, say, right? And you're going to do lookalike modeling on LinkedIn based on a primary data set of information, and you're looking for those same people, social can be really effective, right? But there's so much layered strategy than just hitting post. So think about social as, it has to be a tool in your toolbox to using. If you're not doing it now, you are missing out, but it can't be the only thing that you're leveraging.
I think one thing that we've gotten pretty good at as a firm is our marketing capabilities are
Yeah.
integrated throughout our entire firm. Is that it's not something where marketing is over in this room and only 3 or 4 people work with you
Mm-hmm.
and or your team. I
Mm-hmm.
really sense that marketing is part of our firm culture,
Mm-hmm.
and our professional staff really has great familiarity with what you do. And
Yeah.
so when it becomes, whether it's a technical article or we engage our employees to participate in maybe a social media campaign,
Mm-hmm.
or sharing likes or liking or retweeting, whatever the case may be, how important it is for the entire firm to understand the role of marketing for a successful marketing plan.
When we think about marketing in house, we have been super fortunate and, placed a lot of emphasis on showcasing the talent of our people. Like, we're in a people business, right? So having so many people across practice lines have the ability and opportunity, right, to be part of marketing is an honor, but it's because we've been really forward about their opportunity to be involved in marketing, showcasing what we're doing, reminding our internal teams about things that are happening with marketing, where we are, whether it's a webinar that's happening next week, or it's the slew of LTT episodes that posted last month, or it's national partnerships and alliances that we've really integrated with. The understanding of your employees gets them to buy in a little bit, but it also lets them be part of your story. And so many firms today, have said to me over the last couple of weeks, like, hey, is the photography that you use on all the things really your people, or have you just bought a whole catalog of stock that looks the same, right? And so, there may be some,
We have
more
a Bobby. We have a Bobby. She comes and
we
takes our
do,
pictures.
yeah, we're proud of that. But it's just one thing, right? And it seems really fundamental and silly. And you may have some gripes the morning of when people show up to those photo shoots, but that has really become a staple of our brand, and we're so
Sure,
proud of our people, right? And to
sure.
think about all the different things and ways that marketing is doing to amplify not only what we're doing, but relationships with clients, and to leave your people out for us is just a no-brainer, right? That's never been part of what we think. But again, it's getting them involved and giving them an opportunity to be part of telling your story that I think builds internal culture, right? It builds internal vesture for people to be really dedicated to, who your firm is today, but not only where your firm is going in the future, right? As we think about, McGuire Sponsel launching a strategic plan for 2030, marketing is part of that. right? And people, I think a couple years in now, really understand their value and what they provide to marketing, but also what they get in return, right? And building national credibility for whether it's our R&D practice, our property tax practice. Matthew Barnhill has an opportunity within marketing to really go to a different place than he would otherwise, and we're really proud of that opportunity. So, yeah, employees are critical to the bandwidth. We know it takes time, right? But just keep on them, and it'll pay off.
Well, it's something you and I talk about, Kelsey, is that marketing
Yeah,
cannot be treated as a light switch. It
yeah,
cannot be a checkbox. I say it's more like a dimmer switch. There's times you
yeah,
can turn it way up, and there's times you can turn it down a little bit, like obviously right before a key tax deadline. But
right.
at the same time, it's got to be dynamic around the clock. And I remember
Hmm.
years ago back in my prior life, I had a partner of a firm that treated marketing and business development like a light switch. It's like, oh, it's tax season or it's
Yeah,
deadline season, business development and marketing shuts off, and now we're past the deadline, turn it back on and bring the work in. And I think
yeah, yeah.
with the technology, with the engagement throughout the firm, I
Hmm.
think we've tried to see it like a definitely a dimmer switch. Okay, so one last question. I like putting people in the spot, Kelsey.
Yes.
So you've been with us. Obviously, it'll be 8 years at the start of 2026 in some
Yeah,
way or shape or form. If you had to go back, what we talked about, what we do, all the things we do well.
yeah.
What was a swing and a miss? What was going back
Ooh.
to Kelsey Brewer back in 2017, and you go back and whisper to her and say, "Hey, listen, remember that? Let's not do that again." What would you say the one thing? One, we probably did a lot of things wrong.
Yeah, I
We're
was
humble
gonna say
people.
where to start.
Because we don't mind failing as long as we're trying.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
what would you say was the one mistake that you really stick out? You go, man, I wish I could have gone and told myself back then, don't do this. Or more importantly, that younger Kelsey Brewer that start in the position you were back in 2017 with a firm taking on marketing initiatives for the first time, we're really starting to get serious.
Yeah.
What would you tell her to stay away from?
To your point, we've had all kinds of things that we've experimented with. I think really understanding what the priority was in the beginning and not trying to do all the things. Coming in from it on the agency side, it's funny because, you build a plan and you craft the plan and you execute the plan, but you still feel like you have to do everything. And I wish
Yeah,
I could go back and tell myself, like, just pick two things and stick to it and be super consistent, because so much of that is the benefit down the road that you really feel. And, part of that goes into thinking about the first McGuire on the Wire podcast. Like, oh gosh, I would have done that so differently. And I know it feels so tactical, but there definitely are many things. And I have been fortunate, right, with this team to be able to experiment and to say, hey, you know what? We are building the plane as we're flying it. And although that's super fun, there's pain along the way. And, you're just redirecting your destination.
sure.
It's not that you're necessarily failing all the way through, but yeah, it's been really fun. It's fun to be in a place that values marketing, because to your point, I don't think everybody really understands its potential. And it changes just so darn fast. So that's another thing. I think looking back and realizing how much would change so quickly. I mean, everything with COVID just accelerated, the lights off of it. And right after COVID was AI. And so, we're all just keeping up over here, but we're doing our best with what we have.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
Kelsey, this has been fun. We'll do it
Yeah.
again, and
We'll do
I
it
very
again.
much enjoy. And like I said, I can't overemphasize enough what a critical role marketing, Kelsey's leadership has been to our firm, and where it's positioned ourselves, our brand, and our position in the overall CPA industry. That's a wrap on today's episode. Thanks again to Kelsey for joining me and sharing her perspective on the evolution of marketing and what it really takes to drive growth in firms today. As we discussed, marketing isn't a light switch you flip, it's a dimmer. It's about consistency, buy-in across the partner group, and playing the long game when it comes to building trust and reputation. To learn more about how McGuire Sponsel supports CPA firms with marketing and growth strategies across our areas of technical expertise, visit McGuireSponsel.com or connect with Kelsey directly. So again, Kelsey, thank you. And all of our listeners out there, thank you for your support of Let's Talk Tax. Take care.